Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me on my channel. I am so very excited to be back here today. It's a much more sunny day and I am absolutely in a better mood than during the week. I mean, during the week we are so um, embroiled in the activities and the responsibilities of the week, but I'm so very excited to be here today and I am so very grateful for all of you who are subscribed and have liked, commented, shared your thoughts, and it's been very encouraging to me. You don't have an idea just how encouraging that has been for me. And today I just wanted to get into, the practicality of what we mean when we speak about vision. I know I speak about vision so much because it's something I'm very, very passionate about. And not only am I passionate about it, I believe that my life, how I've lived my life, how I have decided is all driven by vision, is all driven by what I see beyond what is happening in the current. But I wanted to bring in a little bit more of practicality in terms of understanding why there is just so much more than what you may currently see or what you may have in the past identified with as your life journey, as your life purpose. Because sometimes what holds us back is the past, what we believed about where we're going, what we thought we would be doing, how we thought we would be doing it, with whom we thought we would be doing it with. So it's very important to get to a place where you are able to look back and say, it's that is something I identified with then, but this is something that is not necessarily serving the purpose right now, and I can walk away from it without guilt, without shame, but with confidence and boldness that what I'm stepping into is exactly what I ought to be stepping into, right? And that is why today we are getting into this a practical application of what it means to walk in vision and walk in purpose. And what informs this hugely is understanding that there is so much more. There is so much more, right? I would love to start from a place where I give an account, a little bit of an account of how I grew up, my personality, and some of the things that really informed my my vision or informed how I did things, right? And I love to start off with giving an account of how I was like as a kid. For people who knew me, I mean, from primary or my high school days, I think there's one thing that they all can agree on is I've always been a very goofy child, super goofy, had so much energy. I really had so much energy, very goofy, super goofy. And I think this is something that most people can identify with. When we look back at ourselves, our younger selves, we identify with energy, we identify with personality, life, and just being lively. And that's something that sometimes the harshness of adulting can steal from you or can take away from you if you are not mindful of how you are evolving as an adult. And I was that kid, man. If there's one thing that really comes to mind is I was a kid who loved reading, right? Loved reading, loved writing. I loved expressing my creative abilities, my creative genius, basically. And I remember this newspaper. I would just grab random newspapers from home, honestly, and I'd read to random people, something that did not very much please my mom, because you know how parents are, you can't just go around reading to random people. This is what they'll do. They want to, but I mean, I didn't, I didn't care about that because I was a child. I really was just a child who was excited to read and speak. I moved around with newspapers, reading to any person who was willing to listen. I remember there's this particular lady that I won't forget because of her encouragement. I think I was able to read more and I was excited to read more. Her name was Sis Emma. Sis Emma was a helper at one of our neighbors' homes. And I remember this one time she was just saying, "Oh my gosh, she reads so well." So sometimes it's that little encouragement that gets you going, that actually informs a part of why you continue to do certain things. So her encouragement was very key for me. And I mean, moving and transitioning from a primary, I was still very outspoken. Even in primary, I wanted to do anything and everything. I went from playing football, ladies football, and I left. There I left willfully by choice because I was tired of being dribbled. I was tired of falling. I was tired of just going home with painful knees, ankles. It was just so horrendous. Then I went from playing ladies football to netball. And netball, honestly, they had to kick me out because I was just doing nothing. I was doing nada. I was very bad at it. And everyone just said, no, man, what a waste of height. I was very tall, the typical best netball player, but I just didn't have the skill. And I mean, I attribute much of that to we had little to no training. The people who did well, I think they had managed to get some training from previous years in their lives. And I was just coming in to this, sport without no skill, without no exposure to the sports, and I was kicked out. I was kicked out because they just couldn't stop whistling, blowing that whistle at me. So yeah, I was kicked out, and then I went into drama and poetry and choral verse recitals, and that's where I think I actually did well. I thrived in that space, and I loved it because I loved thriving. I didn't love doing something and not do good at it. I loved doing something that I could look back at and say, oh my gosh, I nailed that. So I think I stayed in that space for much longer than I had stayed in my netball or my football games, and that worked out so well for me. And the reason I bring in these elements is because sometimes we fail to recognize what is not working for us. It's not bad to try something, but it's very detrimental to your progress and to how you proceed if you stay at something when you're not good at it. And so recognizing and learning to reconcile with those things, knowing when something is for you and knowing when something is not for you and knowing when to let go of it is so very important. But also equally important is understanding that there is so much more outside of what you were exposed to, right? And I say this because growing up, there's only so much we were exposed to. There's only so much we were exposed to. And it could have easily defined what I thought I could go for based on what I was exposed to, right? For example, I grew up thinking and believing that I wanted to be a geologist because at that time it's something that was considered the highest paying job in my time. And I mean it informed me choosing to do geography over business studies or economics because I wanted to be a geologist. But did it actually work out for me? Not particularly. I did well. I mean, I studied so much and I did well because I studied. I didn't do well because I had a passion for it. I did well because I studied, right? And that's just what happens when you are limited by what you're exposed to. I mean, coming from a small mining town, your thinking is around the mine. I want to do something in the mine. Exposure, again, how what you're exposed to can limit you, right? And it's very important to know and understand when to walk away and when to reintroduce yourself to things that you did not have the privilege to be exposed to, right? And I love to also give credit to my the people that really recognized my gift and my talents in high school, particularly my English teacher. My English teacher was very, very much for me. He believed in me so much so that one day he called me and he said, I need you to think about a career that is in line with your skills and your talents. And he said, mostly speaking, he made sure I went to all orators contest competitions in the area, and that really built up my confidence. It really built up my confidence. I got to understand, oh, this is something I actually love. And funny enough, when I got to varsity, I then went to do economics with little exposure. I mean, the last time I did economics was in grade 9, because in grade 10, that's where you get to choose your subjects. I went on to do economics in a varsity and I did well in it. And the reason I'm saying this is because sometimes our exposure limits our choices, right? And one thing that's important is to understand that um, what you're exposed to is not necessarily what is out there. There's always so much more, and the ability to move away from what you have been exposed to or what you thought would work or what you thought you wanted to do is very key to actually walking in God's vision for your life. Because sometimes what holds us back is the narratives and the outcomes that we are attached to, right? When you're attached to certain narratives, when you're attached to certain outcomes, when you're attached to certain hows with who's and with the whats, you sometimes fail or struggle to walk into the newness of what is happening for you at the time based on what is being presented to you. So a person who is a visionary, someone who's able to consider and reconsider, to realign and also bring in new alignments based on what is presented to them. So understanding and knowing that there's so much more is very key and pivotal as you proceed to write down your goals and your visions. Recognize and know what are the things that you have limited yourself to based on your exposure, and also align certain things based on this is the core of who I am, so I am going to proceed with this because this is at the core of who I am. So I wanted to bring this before you and to bring it out there to say, do not allow yourself to be limited by what you have been exposed to. I mean, if you are like me, coming from a small mining town, there's only so much that you are exposed to. I mean, I saw this vast difference of exposure when I got to varsity, knowing and seeing that certain people were way ahead in terms of what they knew also opened me up to say, you know what, I can actually dream much more bigger. I can do so much more based on what I had seen people were exposed to. So do not limit yourself based on what you're exposed to. Always seek to understand why you are pursuing certain things. Are you pursuing them because you are attached to them, because it's a narrative or an outcome you are attached to, or are you pursuing those things because it's what you believe and know that you ought to be pursuing? That's so, so important for you to know and understand. There is so much more. There is so much more. And so much more sometimes begins when you move away from what you have known all your life from your past, narratives, outcomes that you were attached to. I hope this was so insightful and impactful for you. And I hope that as you begin or continue to write down goals, visions, outcomes, whatever it is for the coming years, few years, whether it's short, 3 to 5 years, or in the long term, 10 years plus, I hope you learn and understand that you are not to be limited by what you're exposed to, and that you can always redefine vision, purpose based on what God is also presenting to you right now. Thank you so much. I hope this was insightful, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely week ahead. And please subscribe, share, and comment below and let me know what your thoughts are concerning this episode. Have a lovely week ahead. Thank you for watching.